everyone. I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you because we have hit our initial goal of 500 subscribers. Woo! And I couldn't be more grateful, and I couldn't have done it without you. So now it's time to set a new goal. My new goal is 1,000 subscribers. I know we can do it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch, participate, become a part of this unafraid, unapologetic, always seeking the truth community. Your support helps us keep the content coming and growing and rocking and rolling. Thank you so much for being with us, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King, and this is Extra 106.3. And this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings that are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's kitchen table topic, meet the Clintons. Because Bill and Hillary Clinton are on the hot seat yet again. But if you are new to politics or you're under the age of 40, you may not understand why there's so much hoopla all around them. Why does it seem like they're either beloved or they're hated? How is it that there's so many people who tout them as this philanthropic, caring couple who have amassed so many critics? On one side of the aisle, they are the ultimate power couple, the political pioneers that defined an era. And on the other side, they are the center of decades-long webs of controversy. So why does it seem like they are either beloved or hated? Absolutely no middle ground. Well, today, we're going to peel back some of the layers of the Clinton legacy, from the 90s boom to the Foundation drama, and then figure out how and why their name seems to still spark a firestorm in 2026. And as we approach their upcoming hearing with Congress, I thought it was extremely important for all of us, the kitchen table debaters, to understand what is going on and to get a much needed refresher before we listen to their testimony. So let's start at the top. Who are these people? Where did they come from? To understand this quote unquote power couple, you have to understand the individuals and who they are. That they didn't start in the halls of power. They didn't start as a couple. They started as two very different types of Americans. Bill Clinton grew up in Arkansas, a state where there was like the good old boy politics, and that was the only way you can get things done. He was a Rhodes Scholar, but he also was a man who learned very quickly how to use his charm to kind of paper over his personal failings. Whether it was avoiding the draft or his early reputation of being this reckless young politician, Bill's rise was marked by a talent of talking his way out of trouble. That's like his thing. That's what he's known for, is talking his way out of trouble. Remember, I did not have any sexual relations with that woman, which we knew was a lie, but he convinced a lot of people. He convinced them. So while Bill was working the rooms in the South, Hillary Rodham was in the North. And she was becoming this protege to the left-wing activists. While she was at Wesley and Yale, she didn't just study law, she studied power. She was ideological and she was fiercely defensive. She had a trait that would later define her Hillary style of stonewalling investigations and blocking and tackling. And here's a little bit of Hillary Clinton speaking at her college graduations.
And I find myself in a familiar position, that of reacting, something that our generation has been doing for quite a while now. We're not in the positions yet of leadership and power, but we do have that indispensable element of criticizing and constructive protest. Part of the problem with just empathy with professed goals is that empathy doesn't do us anything. We've had lots of empathy, we've had lots of sympathy, but we feel that for too long our leaders have viewed politics as the art of the possible. And the challenge now is to practice politics as the art of making what appears to be impossible possible. The question about possible and impossible was one that we brought with us to Wellesley 4 years ago. We arrived not yet knowing what was not possible. Consequently, we expected a lot. Our attitudes are easily understood, having grown up, having come to consciousness in the first 5 years of this decade, years dominated by men with dreams, men in the civil rights movement, the Peace Corps, the space program. So we arrived at Wellesley, and we found, as all of us have found, that there was a gap between expectation and realities. But it wasn't a discouraging gap, and it didn't turn us, into cynical, bitter old women at the age of 18. It just inspired us to do something about that gap. What we did is often difficult for some people to understand. They ask us quite often, why, if you're dissatisfied, do you stay in a place? Well, if you didn't care a lot about it, you wouldn't stay. Our love for this place, this particular place, Wellesley College, coupled with our freedom from the burden of an inauthentic reality, allowed us to question basic assumptions underlying our education. But we also know that to be educated, the goal of it must be human liberation. A liberation enabling each of us to fulfill our capacities so as to be free to create within and around ourselves. The struggle for an integrated life existing in an atmosphere of communal trust and respect is one with desperately important political and social consequences. And the word consequences, of course, catapults us into the future. One of the most tragic things that happened yesterday was that I was talking to a woman who said she wouldn't want to be me for anything in the world. She wouldn't want to live today and look ahead to what it is she sees because she's afraid. Fear is always with us, but we just don't have time for it. Not now.
So as you can see, she was a bit of a powerhouse as a young woman coming up in college, and they were already taking to her. They were already embracing her perspectives and all of the above. So when she got to Yale Law in 1971 and she met Bill, it wasn't just a romance. A lot of people call it a political merger. And these marriages are designed to obtain power, and it's much more common than people understand here in politics. There are a lot of couples that come together simply because they can put their assets, their skills together, and then amass power. I personally feel like those are the type of marriages that tend to collapse because they're not foundationally strong. And as you can see, Bill and Hillary's marriage is not seen as a goals or couple goals, right? It's pretty obvious that she stuck it with him because of the brand rather than love. So you had Bill's grassroots, his type of like backslapping retail politics was paired with Hillary Clinton's more cold and calculated legal mind. And that became the force. Republicans have always seen this moment of them coming together as the political Clinton machine being born because it wasn't about public service. It was about two people who realized that together they could create a political juggernaut and that it would be the most impossible for people to stop, provided that they kept all of their secrets buried long enough and deep enough to continue to get away with it and maintain their legacy. So the Clintons like to present themselves as outsiders, but their mentors and the people who they listen to and help groom them tells a very different story. So Bill Clinton was brought up under J. William Fulbright. He was a man who embodied the permanent political class. Bill learned the long-time game of Washington, how to build a network off of favors that would protect him later. That was all Fulbright. Like Bill, Fulbright was also a Rhodes Scholar from Arkansas who believed that a kid from a backwater state could and should run the world. Fulbright wasn't just a local politician, but he was a titan of the 20th century. He served in the U.S. Senate for 30 years and holds the record for the longest serving chairman on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He is the man behind the Fulbright program, which is the world's famous international exchange scholarship, and he was a fierce critic of what he called the arrogance of power. He famously led the opposition against the Vietnam War, even when it meant going up against his own party, President Lyndon B. Johnson. So, here's where the controversy lies. Despite Fulbright's progressive views on world peace, Fulbright was a Southern Democrat who signed a Southern manifesto opposing the racial integration of public schools. He voted against the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But Clinton didn't just admire Fulbright from afar. He worked for him while he was a student at Georgetown. Bill secured a job as a clerk for Fulbright's office. It was there that Bill learned the long game of Washington, how to hold power, how to survive a scandal, how to navigate the divide between the liberal international ideas and this gritty reality of Southern politics. And in 1993, Bill Clinton returned the favor by awarding his old mentor, who did not support the Civil Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act, but he honored him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, calling him a man of bold, enlightened initiative. And many people say that this bond between Fulbright and Clinton is the earliest evidence of the Clinton style, which is like prioritizing political power, intellectual prestige over consistent moral record. They see this support, him supporting him giving him the Presidential Medal of Freedom as just that. Someone who's choosing power over morality. Now, you'll say, okay, well, that's Bill. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton's, her mentor and biggest supporter, who she loves and who she admired the most. So for Hillary, she looked to radicals like Marian Wright Eldman and even studied the tactics of community organizers. These weren't just mentors teaching a middle of the road American values. They were teaching how to use the institutions and the legal system to push a specific and a most often far left agenda. If Bill Clinton's mentor was the ultimate insider, I would say that Hillary Clinton's mentor was the ultimate crusader, the ultimate activist. While Bill was learning the levers of power under Senator Fulbright, Hillary was becoming a protege to Marian Wright Eldman. Eldman was this powerhouse first Black woman admitted to the Mississippi bar. She was the founder of the Children's Defense Fund, and she didn't care about all of the type of retail politics that Bill Clinton was doing in all of his foreign policy grandstanding. Her mission, in her words, was to leave no child behind, so she says. So she taught Hillary that the law was a weapon to be used for the vulnerable. So all of this legalese, litigious fighting styles, lawfare lynching that we're seeing today, a lot of that was pushed, developed, and secured by this lady, Marian. But although they were very close and Hillary loved her, Marian didn't really love Bill. And there was this fascinating moment where there was a bit of tension at the heart of the Clinton partnership due to Marian. You see, Hillary's foundation was built on Eldman's uncompromising advocacy for the poor, and Bill Clinton's foundation was built on Fulbright's pragmatic and often morally compromised need to win over the establishment. So it wasn't all good. It wasn't like there was a perfect match because pretty much their mentors and their mentor styles were colliding. So in 1996, there was a moment of tension where President Bill Clinton signed a massive welfare reform bill to satisfy the conservative Congress because he was all about making sure that we get support from across the aisle and have more of an establishment approach. And the whole goal of the conservative Congress was to end welfare as we know it. Well, Hillary's mentor, Marian Wright Eldman, was horrified. She called the bill a moral outrage and a betrayal to children. Her husband, Peter Eldman, actually resigned from the Clinton administration in protest, and Hillary was sort of caught in the middle because she had to decide, am I going to be loyal to my husband and his political survival, or am I going to placate to my mentor who saw that approach of political survival as being a sellout? So, from the conservative perspective, this clash of mentors is exactly why the Clintons seem to be so untrustworthy, because we argue that they use the Eldman's philanthropic image of looking caring and concerned and really loving on people, but always tend to revert right back to Fulbright's power at all cost tactics, and then that is how their careers are always on the line. However, it's the approach that they choose to take. They claim that the Clintons learned how to speak the language of activists while living the life of an elite. That is the image of the Clintons. And if you want to know where Hillary's ruthlessness comes from and her ruthless reputation comes from, it wasn't from Marian. It came from a man by the name of Saul Alinsky. And Saul was certainly a lightning rod in the conservative circles, because in 1969, a young woman, Hillary, wrote a 92-page senior thesis at Wesley College on Alinsky's tactics. He was the author of a book called Rules for Radicals, which was a handbook for activists that famously prioritized results over the process. And one of his core tenets was the most unethical of all means is the non-use of any means to achieve a good end. In other words, if the goal is worthy, then the method is justified, no matter what that method is. Alinsky offered Hillary a job after she graduated. She turned him down because she went to Yale Law School and decided to do that instead of fighting the system. She said instead of fighting the system from the outside like Alinsky, she would want to change it from the inside. So she went to law school so that she can then begin this political journey of obtaining power from the inside. However, Alinsky taught that to win, you have to personalize the enemy, freeze them out, and polarize them. It's a lot like what's happening right now with this whole MAGA thing, right? Every single person who supports Trump is thrown into the MAGA category, whether you are in it or not, whether you agree or not. They throw everyone in there. Their whole job is to personalize the enemy, okay? The enemy is MAGA. You now have Bakari sellers saying things like we have to end MAGA. You have like people who believe that the whole MAGA movement needs to be killed and shut down. And whether you agree or not, the fact of the matter is this comes from this type of teaching, this type of understanding that you have to personalize the enemy, freeze them out, make them look like they're all crazy, and polarize them. Make them say they are Nazis. They are the ones who are supposed to hate this country. That tactic comes from Saul Alinsky, who was Hillary Clinton's mentor. And many people say that this is exactly how the Clinton machine has operated for decades, turning every investigation into a vast right-wing conspiracy and attacking the messenger to protect the message. That is how they do it. But here's the thing. In the end, you have two people who are raised by two different types of giants. Bill learned how to keep power, and Hillary learned how to justify it. And that combination together is what created one of the most formidable, most controversial political machines in American history. And the Alinsky connection is a key to the Clinton puzzle because it explains the shift from the caring, philanthropic philanthropist to the political street fighter that we now see in them.
That I have learned about Hillary Clinton is that one of her heroes, her mentors, was Saul Alinsky. And her senior thesis was about Saul Alinsky. This was someone that she greatly admired and that affected all of her philosophies subsequently. Now, interestingly enough, let me tell you something about Saul Alinsky. He wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. On the dedication page, it acknowledges Lucifer, the original radical who gained his own kingdom. Now, think about that. This is a nation where our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, talks about certain inalienable rights that come from our Creator. This is a nation where our Pledge of Allegiance says we are one nation under God. This is a nation where every coin in our pocket and every bill in our wallet says, in God we trust. So are we willing to elect someone as president who has as their role model somebody who acknowledges Lucifer? Think about that.
So now that we are a bit caught up on how we got here, who they are, what's going on, what inspired them, what motivated them, who are the key people behind this machine, let's dive into some of the key moments in their political journey that you will probably hear more about during the hearing. So we're going to talk about the Clinton Foundation. We're going to talk about Benghazi. We're going to do it all after the break. We're just getting started. You're listening to The Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. Don't leave the table. Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you because we have hit our initial goal of 500 subscribers. Woo! And I couldn't be more grateful, and I couldn't have done it without you. So now it's time to set a new goal. My new goal is 1,000 subscribers. I know we can do it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch, participate, become a part of this unafraid, unapologetic, always seeking the truth community. Your support helps us keep the content coming and growing and rocking and rolling. Thank you so much for being with us, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Well, welcome back to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King, and this is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned for family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic, meet the Clintons. The Bill and Hillary Clinton machine. They are yet again on the hot seat. And if you are under 40 or new to politics, you might be wondering, what is all the hoopla actually about? To some, they are this political pioneer, and to others, they are architects of decades-long web of controversy. And as we approach this latest congressional hearing that is getting ready to take place, it's time for a kitchen table refresher. I wanted to recap on how did a smooth-talking saxophonist from Arkansas and this Goldwater-style girl turned radical lawyer create a political machine that is still sparking firestorms 50 years later. Using the tactics of mentors like Senator William Fulbright and Saul Alinsky, who created the tactic of ends justifying the means, they define a legacy. And we're going to peel back a couple of those layers. So in the first segment, you were giving a little bit of a background on both Hillary and Bill. So let's continue getting you caught up before the testimony begins. And I want to start with understanding the Clinton Foundation that is at the center of a lot of controversy. So after Bill Clinton left the White House in 2001, he didn't just go play golf. He started the William J. Clinton Foundation, and what began as a way to fund the Presidential Library in Little Rock, Arkansas, quickly morphed into a global NGO, or a non-governmental organization juggernaut. So by 2013, it was the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation. So the whole family came in on it. And it had raised an estimated $2 billion from corporations, foreign governments, and wealthy donors. Their pitch was simple. We have the best Rolodex in the world, and we use it to get things done for global health and economic development. That is what they use to try to sell everyone on this Clinton Foundation. And the foundation's Clinton Health Access Initiative, or CHI, is often cited by experts as a massive success. They say that this was good, that they used their leverage to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies to lower price of life-saving drugs for HIV, AIDS, and malaria by about 90%. Which is phenomenal if they were able to do that. At this point, I feel like I don't trust much of anything that comes from the Clintons' mouth. However, data is data, and if this is true, then good. That sounds great. And for a lot of their supporters, this was the caring part of their legacy. It was also a very tangible, more of a life-saving results drive, and it made people feel like, okay, this is something we can trust. But it was more like a Trojan horse, because then we have to talk about Haiti. Because in 2010, there was a catastrophic earthquake that leveled the country. Bill Clinton was appointed to the UN Special Envoy. He was co-chair of the Interim Haiti Recovery Commission, and he promised to help Haiti build back better. That sounds very familiar, right? In case you forgot it. Yeah, Biden. Okay. Anyway, today, there are a lot of Haitians who wish the Clintons had never arrived, and they don't ever want to see them again. Because over $13 billion in aid was pledged globally, and years later, hundreds of thousands are still living in tents. Haitians looked at the Clinton machine, and they asked the number one question that we all should be asking, which is, where is the money? While the foundation denied taking any money, many people believe that the funds were funneled into projects that didn't help the average person. It didn't give them what they actually needed. For instance, There was the Caracol Industrial Park. This was like the crown jewel of the Clinton plan, and it was a massive factory complex that intended to create 60,000 jobs. Instead, it displaced hundreds of farmers, only created a fraction of the promised jobs, and was seen as a sweatshop model designed to benefit multinational corporations and not Haitian families. Not to mention, only about 1% of the aid money, that billions of dollars, went directly to the Haitian government for local businesses. Decisions were made in New York City and in these DC boardrooms and by these outsiders who didn't fully understand the needs of the locals. So Haiti is like the ultimate example of the Clinton pay-to-play model. While Hillary was Secretary of State, the foundation was taking donations from foreign entities and then receiving lucrative contracts in Haiti. So whether it was a South Korean garment company or a mobile phone giant, the same names kept popping up, and they were all Clinton Foundation donors. So this wasn't philanthropy, it was a disaster. The Clintons used a tragedy to enrich their friends and their families and all of their supporters, and they expanded their global influence, leaving the people of Haiti in the dust. And this is why, even up until now, in 2026, you will see protesters outside of the Clinton events with signs that says Haiti hasn't forgotten, because they still have an emotional attachment to the failures of this foundation and how it deeply impacted their community. So when the Clintons are asked about the humanitarian crisis during this hearing, when they are asked about whether or not that got boggled down in bureaucracy or was it a global slush fund operating under the guise of charity, now you will understand what they are talking about. They're talking about the Clinton Foundation and how they hurt so many Haitians. So let's continue into the next debacle, Benghazi. I'm going to do my best to explain this to you in layman's terms. On September 11th, 2012, which was the 11th anniversary of 9/11, a diplomatic outpost in the nearby CIA annex in Benghazi, Libya, was attacked by a heavily armed group of Islamic militants, okay? So this was a United States outpost that was attacked by Islamic militants in Benghazi. And by the time the smoke cleared, 4 Americans were dead, including a U.S. ambassador, Chris Stevens. He was the first American ambassador to be killed in the line of duty in over 30 years. For many Americans, this wasn't just a tragedy, it was a failure of the highest order. And to understand this controversy, you have to look at what happened before, during, and after the attack, because all of it plays a role. So before the attack, you had Ambassador Stevens, who later was killed, and his team. They sent multiple cables or messages to Washington, D.C., which was where Hillary's State Department was, and it was going to Hillary. We'll go over what state departments are and what they do and all that stuff in another show. But anyway, they sent this cable and these messages to Hillary, and they were begging for more security. He indicated that Benghazi was becoming a war zone, that there had already been an IED thrown at the compound and an attack on the British ambassador. And the State Department actually reduced security in Libya during this time rather than increasing it. So there were a lot of people who say that Hillary's office ignored these red flags to maintain this narrative that Libya was a success story. Because for the Clintons, they care more about their brand than they do other people or how other people are being impacted. And as the attack unfolded over several hours, there was a massive debate about whether or not the U.S. military could have gotten there in time to save those lives. They did not have any support. Some survivors and critics claimed that there was a stand down order that was given, preventing nearby troops from rushing in. While multiple investigations found no evidence of a formal order, the fact that no outside help arrived for hours became a symbol of Washington's incompetence, particularly on the Clintons' watch. This is the part that most people remember, and this is the part that is stuck in a lot of people's heads for those who were there. But if you're younger or you're new to politics, now you'll have it, okay? So this is the part that most people remember. 4 days after the attack, the Obama administration, which included Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice, told the public that the attack was a spontaneous protest that was triggered by a random anti-Muslim YouTube video. Okay, a spontaneous protest. Although we were just talking about how the ambassador was sending messages to the State Department informing them that he needed more security, but emails showed that Hillary knew within hours that this was a coordinated terrorist attack by an Al-Qaeda linked group. And there are a lot of people who are not happy about this, who claim that she just lied straight to the public. She lied to the victims, she lied to their families, and she did it all to protect her president's re-election campaign, which was built on the idea that they had Al-Qaeda on the run. So they had to make it appear like they were actually winning over there and they were actually making progress, when in fact, we were being attacked and 4 Americans were now dead. And here's the ugly part. During her 2013 testimony, she was grilled by a senator about whether or not the attack started as a protest in the terrorist raid. And as she was frustrated, she shouted out, "With all due respect, the fact that we have 4 dead Americans, was it because of a protest? Was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?"
There were supposedly protests, and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that was not the fact.
But
and the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator. Now, honestly, I will do my best to answer your questions about this, but the fact is that people were trying in real time to get to the best information. The IC has a process, I understand, going with the other committees to explain how these talking points came out. But you know, to be clear, it is, from my perspective, less important today, looking backwards, as to why these militants decided they did it, than to find them and bring them to justice. And then maybe we'll figure out what was going on in the meantime.
Whew, that was pretty rough. There were some people that supported her, saying that all she was saying is let's focus on the dead and not the semantics. But there are others who said that this is the ultimate Saul Alinsky style move, deflecting accountability and showing a cold indifference to the truth. The fact of the matter is, yes, 4 people are dead, and yes, that matters, but it also matters how we got there. Particularly if it's due to bad orders or bad decisions, we need to make some moves so it doesn't happen again. But ironically, the Benghazi investigation, it was actually discovered that Hillary was using a private email server in her basement to conduct government business. So here are the emails. So now we're walking you up to the emails, if you remember all of that stuff. This opened a whole new discussion about national security and deleted records that followed her all the way to her loss in 2016. We all remember President Trump hounding her about those emails and basically saying that she needs to be locked up because of all of that stuff. So when you hear Benghazi brought up during these 2026 hearings, understand that it's not about a tragic night in Libya only. It's about a pattern of ignoring red flags and warning signs in a spun narrative that they created, and this feeling among critics that the Clintons' political optics will always come before American lives. However, there is one common denominator, one thing that has been presented throughout all of these controversies that had the power to change the course of history, and we're going to talk about it right after the break. You're listening to The Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. We're almost done. Don't leave the table. Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you because we have hit our initial goal of 500 subscribers. Woo! And I couldn't be more grateful, and I couldn't have done it without you. So now it's time to set a new goal. My new goal is 1,000 subscribers. I know we can do it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch, participate, become a part of this unafraid, unapologetic, always seeking the truth community. Your support helps us keep the content coming and growing and rocking and rolling. Thank you so much for being with us, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King, and this is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic, meet the Clintons. We are talking about Bill and Hillary Clinton. And before the break, we introduced you to Hillary and Clinton before they met each other. We also walked through their mentors and who was the person that was kind of guiding their thoughts when they met each other to when they got married. They ended up taking power. We discussed the Clinton Foundation, the Haiti debacle, as well as Benghazi. So now, as we close, there is this one common denominator that has always been present throughout every single chapter of the Clinton journey, and it's the voter. Think about it. When the Clintons weren't in a government role, their influence was limited to their social circle. There wasn't a real impact on other people. But once they were voted into office and the Clinton machine went global, their choices didn't just impact the boardroom or their personal lives. It impacted national security, our tax dollars, and the reputation of the world on the world stage. We have the 26 midterms upon us right now. And we have two things that we must get right. And if we want to avoid these cycles of controversy, we have to get it right. And that's turnout and selection, picking the right candidate. We got to turn out the votes, and we have to pick the right candidate. Because as you can see, when it comes to the Clintons, it is very easy to get wrapped up in all these other things. It's very easy to get distracted. It's very easily to look at the little that's being done that's good and then determine that I can live with this. And as you've seen over the last few decades, the moment you say yes to something that you shouldn't say yes to, it's almost inevitable. It's certain that it will come back to bite you, and it has. So many people voted for Biden because they simply did not like Trump. And as a result of that, we are now clawing our way out of a disastrous administration that led to huge economic downturns. Not only that, inflation hit us hard. We have women who can't tell you what a woman is. We have people saying that men can get pregnant, 57 genders, migrations and illegal immigrants coming into this country in droves. Crime on the increase, drugs out of this world. All of this happened in a matter of 4 years simply because you picked the wrong person. So we've got to drive turnout, meaning we all have to go vote. But we're not just voting for voting's sake. We're also voting because we need to know who we're voting for, and because we want to make sure we vote for the right person. It's not enough to just show up. We have to pick the right person. We don't have much time, so here are some hard-hitting changes that we must make in order to make sure that we are vetting our candidates correctly. Number one, we have to stop picking candidates who are just great in retail politics. Being a smooth talker who can work the room or play the saxophone doesn't mean that they can handle the job. We need solutions, concrete plans, and most importantly, the character to execute them. We cannot fall for charm. We have to look for a person who actually embodies the role and will allow the charm to be the cherry on top. It's great if they know how to campaign well, but campaigning and being great at campaigning but can't do the job gets you someone who will be forever campaigning and never doing the job. And that's kind of what we see right now. Number two, we need to change what we look for in a candidate on its face value. The number one thing I look for in a candidate, and I think we all should, is whether or not they have the ability to answer a question. Watch and see if they're always doing the candidate dodge, where the candidate is like trying to figure out multiple ways to not answer the question. If a candidate has the ability to appeal to the masses, but rarely answers questions directly, that is a huge red flag. Charisma shouldn't be a distraction for a lack of transparency. We have to be clear. No matter how friendly they are, no matter how kind they are, no matter how good they are at spewing out red meat that makes you excited and gets you hyped up, Pay attention to whether or not the questions are being answered, and not being answered with these political jargon, but being answered with real answers. Next, we have to search for authenticity. You know when it's we all know when we've met a authentic person. You can feel it. You feel like, okay, I believe this person's telling me the truth. Most of the time it's because they're not talking in these platitudes or these high stuff. So if someone's like, oh, we got to win this election because this country's at stake, but they can't say how so or what they're going to do to fix it, that is a major problem. Don't ignore your gut just because the candidate looks good on the flyer. Look for the person behind the talking points. Are they authentic? Next, trust your standard. We all know the type of person we want to see in that seat. We all know someone with integrity, someone who puts the country over their own interests or their future book deals. I truly believe you will know it when you see it. And finally, here's one that I see happen a lot. Vote your conscience and not the polls. Meaning, don't be afraid to vote for the candidate that might lose. Too often, people vote for the person leading in the polls just to say I voted for the winner. Doing that for the sake of being on the winning team is how we end up with the same problems every single cycle. You've got to make sure that you pick the right person, and you pick the right person not because they seem to be on a team or because everybody else is doing it, but because you've done your research. There are so many people that voted for my husband when he ran for U.S. Senate. And I believe it was around 40,000 voters or something like that in the primary. And I admire those voters because when Herschel Walker was in the race, everyone was like, oh, well, he has a name recognition. I know he's going to win. Who votes for someone simply because they have name recognition, especially when the general provides name recognition to whomever is in that race? But we've got to stop doing that. So there were people that did their research and they saw that my husband was the better option. Or there were other people that voted for other candidates. But they saw that Herschel was not the best option. And clearly that was the case because he lost. So we've got to stop jumping on the bandwagons and start standing on our own 2 feet. Because look, the Clintons are back on the hot seat this month. But they only got there because they were given the keys to the House. And that happened through voters. So this midterm, let's make sure that we know exactly who we're handing those keys to. Until next time, stay unafraid, stay unapologetic, and never, ever, ever stop seeking the truth.